one last thing, Deus Ex. This refers to, if you want to really get to the core of what Elon Musk represents, is the title Deus Ex refers to a plot device in Greek plays called Deus Ex Machina, God out of the machine, where they would literally drop when the movie, or when the play seemed to be at its absolute worst, where there's no hope, all of a sudden they drop a literal God on wires out of the machine. They drop it onto the stage, and the Savior saves everything. Right when the world seemed most hopeless, he buys X and resurrects Donald Trump Osiris after he was killed and miraculously saved.
Are we watching for more of that in the coming weeks, months? Because when you said that, I also think of something like Project Bluebeam. People talk about falsifying a return or alien. You said earlier, faking an alien invasion. Is that something you think is on your list?
End game.
Yeah.
So Werner von Braun, his close assistant, I believe her name is Carol Rosen. She is on record in an interview saying that on his deathbed, of course, we've already talked about what his gravestone was, which seems to indicate that he was, looking to drop some secrets right before he died. Mm-hmm. On his deathbed, he tells her, listen, after, we have the Cold War, we have terrorism, we have third world crazies like in North Korea, Iran, nuclear power crazies. The final end game is a fake alien invasion. And this is what he tells his assistant. Great. He says there'll be a fake alien invasion that they'll use because when there's an alien invasion, you have to unite the governments of the world in order to oppose them, just like Reagan and Bill Clinton said. Mm-hmm. And on top of all this, of course, Will Smith, the lead actor in Independence Day, of course, unlike Tom Cruise, he's not a public Scientologist. Right. But what you find is him and his wife, his fucking crazy bitch wife, they were running a Scientology school out of one of their houses in Hollywood Hills for their kids, if you want to know why their kids are so fucked up. But yeah, so
wow.
That is how they control. It all goes back to Parsons, von Braun, Crowley, Hubbard. Yeah. Because of the influence, you have Scientology controlling Hollywood. Think of all the movies Tom Cruise was in, and of course Iron Man he was supposed to be in. You've got Parsons, NASA, and then Stan Lee writes him into fucking the Marvel lore, right? And then of course you have von Braun as the face of NASA, effectively working, of course, with Walt Disney on fictional programs that psychologically prepared the American people to what to look for in the space landing. Now, here's where it ties back. I remember now what we wanted to talk about was the alien invasion. Yeah. This ties it all together. There's a guy, of course, who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, that came out just months before the Apollo 11 landings went on TV. People always say, "Oh, this is why people say Stanley Kubrick directed the Apollo 11 moon landings." Because if you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, it looks more realistic than the 100%. Than the moon landing. 100%. And but the guy who wrote the actual script for 2001: A Space Odyssey also wrote a book called Childhood's End. And in Childhood's End, and I think this is the most likely scenario. I know I was talking about how they give you a fear porn scenario, and then the reality is actually much lighter. So, for instance, you have Contagion, where the pandemic is actually super deadly and does actually kill everybody, as opposed to, having a slightly higher, kill rate than the flu. Yeah. They have Independence Day, which is the fear porn scenario of an alien invasion. But The Childhood's End, now this is a book by same guy who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they wanted to make a movie out of it because obviously he was like on a roll after 2001: A Space Odyssey. Right. Arthur C. Clarke, major sci-fi writer of the time, but this movie Childhood's End, or this book rather, it only got made into a TV show in like 2010. But the plot of this is a alien race decloaks their spaceships over the major cities of the world and prevents nuclear war. Again, in the time of nuclear, in the Cold War. So they end the possibility of nuclear war, just like Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias. And they give humanity technology, they end war, they end hunger, they give us technology and health, they extend the lifespan of humanity. The only stipulation is they never reveal themselves. They never reveal their corporal form to humanity. And they have a liaison that a human that they bring up and who is basically their spokesperson. And of course, it's not like humanity has much of a choice. They've deactivated all their weapons and they have massive technological superiority. But basically what happens in the book is people, they lose without, in a secular world, when you have all your problems, all your human problems fall away, you don't even value yourself at that point. So suicide, going crazy, which you can see a manifestation of this happening already.
Oh, yeah.
And you create problems, confusion, because you've lost the yin and yang of the world, which is, again, what they talk about in the Matrix. They say the first simulations in the Matrix, they put these people in were utopias, but people didn't accept it as reality. They couldn't stand it.
Right.
And that's basically what ends up playing out. And what they find out, though, in Childhood's End, the big kicker, is everyone's lifespan's expanded, but at a certain point, they find out that everyone's sterilized. So they can't have a Childhood's End, which there's also a Children of Men, I believe. Have you seen that? It's a more recent movie, I think.
Is that the one with the last kid or so that woman has a baby and they're trying to protect the baby for the whole movie? Yeah.
Immediately following a pandemic the movie universe, following a pandemic in 2008. In the book that it's based off of, though, it takes place in 2021, the same year that the vaccine was released.
No, man.
And I guess to get to the point, though, that is the most likely scenario. I see the aliens coming in a much, maybe they let off a firework, which going back to the Watchmen, the major difference between the comic book and the movie is in the comic book, they have the alien. But in the movie, they decided, it'd play better if if they put off a bunch of nuclear explosions in major cities and then blame Dr. Manhattan and make Dr. Manhattan the bad guy that unites the world in opposition. So maybe they'll let off a firework. We've got Israel, Iran, and of course Russia all going at once. So there's plenty of nuclear, low key, if people wouldn't like to admit it, especially, people that are really gung ho about the Ukraine war. Of course, as a tenant Russian paid propagandist, I'm going to say this, but.
Oh boy. Now I have to pull the cord.
Yeah, thanks for that free flight out, Tim. The hotel stay, Best Westin. Thanks, Putin.
Keep Tim's name out your motherfucking mouth.
They're out here listening now, but they always have. They've been wiretapping all of us since birth. It's funny when you're talking about Childhood's End. You're talking about the way the aliens turned off all the technology. Another bit of predictive programming I feel like I've been seeing is the supposed coming internet apocalypse that they might blame, they blame the sun for it or something. So I feel like I feel we get a blue beam situation coupled with the internet going out because they realized how good a lot of us were at subverting their power during COVID with the internet, right? And then so Elon buying X is a huge blow to the narrative that they want because obviously now we can use X somewhat freely. I still have lots of issues with it, but it's better in a lot of ways. So yeah, I do feel, and if I tell someone, like I was saying in the very beginning of the show, if I say something like to them about paperclip, and they're like, "That sounds crazy," and then if I say something to them about Bluebeam, they say that's crazy. I'm like, they just shut the whole world down a few years ago. Like literally anything's possible. The whole world died, and then they forced an injection on a lot of you, anything's possible. And you were also talking about, the predictive programming of the movies and Scientology, and you made me think of War of the Worlds. Everyone that thinks of War of the Worlds, they also think about the radio broadcasts and what it supposedly did. I have it somewhere on vinyl, the articles that were written after the broadcast went live, and people freaked out. We're primed for some crazy shit.
I looked into that, when I was looking at the origins of kind of like where do we get these cultural ideas of alien invasions. And what's interesting is those aliens of War of Worlds, it wasn't UFOs. They were like basically missiles. They were like cannons. They were saying the Martians were basically launching these effectively rockets, I guess, that were crashing into Earth. And that's where the aliens were coming from.
Interesting.
The whole UFO thing was kind of like an after effect that they only started doing once to be frank, once the Nazis had created anti-gravitic craft and were flying them around. That's what the phrase Foo Fighters, of course. That was in reference to these unidentified flying objects over the battlefields in Europe.
And that's also
after that happened, then to cover it up, they were like, okay, shit, let's run this up with the whole alien motif quick. And then, of course, these same, just like in the Marvel movies where they have the advanced Nazis that come over and control the U.S., take over. That's essentially, when we do have this alien invasion, they're going to present us with some android biological entity, just like Ozymandias made. Which the Greys, that's the whole, all that shit. They're definitely androids. And some crazy biological creation. And that's actually in Deus Ex. That's another fun part of Deus Ex, is they have the Greys in Deus Ex. They've made, like, the aliens have made contact, but then you find out in the game, they're actually just government biological entity androids that they created in order to distract people from the actual ruling class. And essentially, when this alien invasion happens and they give us all this technology they've been sitting on, which, like we said before, they've kind of done in a way through DARPA. They slowly leak us out, a little DARPA, something, little Facebook, little Amazon. Every once in a while, they're going to give us all this dope shit. And, but in reality, what's going to happen is it's just a kind of public and fulfillment of what the ruling class has always been, is these, they have this breakaway civilization with advanced technology, and they're, once they've sterilized us, which, whether or not the vaccine was kind of a kill shot to that, you don't even need the vaccine to see that fertility rates were already dropping before.
Sure.
So I think we're running right into the childhood Zen scenario, and we're going to have, you're unable to reproduce, and you have all this technology, and this goes back to the individual basis. It'll be very bad for people who don't have any concept of spirituality or God or any type of value of human life or spirit. They will immediately tap into Neuralink and go into a virtual reality and, go straight Matrix mode. But anybody who values themselves and the connection with the divine, are going to reject it. And that's ultimately that's the final test. Then it's literally, they trap souls like that.
Well, Drew, that's a great place to end. I want people to take away that's like the greatest way to prepare for all the chaos to come. And there's going to be a lot of it, as there always is. Man, thank you so much. This was such a fun conversation. Where can people find you? Where can they find your books?
So yeah, I'm on Twitter at Drutang Reborn, and I've got I just did another print run of my book, but I've got a dozen or so copies left. So I do all the sales through DM. So if you do want a copy of my first book, I'll be printing my second book soon. But yeah, you can just DM me if you're interested, and check out my my Twitter for content, and search through it for. If you use any of the keywords of any of the topics that we've talked about, Elon's made it pretty easy to search people's profiles now, thank God. So you just go onto my profile and you can search any keyword in, and you'll find a wealth of information on and supporting documents on basically anything we've talked about today.
Yeah, it's awesome. You got a lot of great stuff out there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. Have a great one.
Bye, Jim.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Later. Man. Prepare for Blue Beam, everybody.
I'm just sitting here thinking about The Purge.
Purge.
Have you ever seen it?
I did see it a long time. I saw one of them a long time ago.
It's like probably the most realistic horror movie and scenario that could actually happen.
I remember thinking of The Purge the night that one of the George Floyd riots broke out, and I saw David Dorn, get shot in the head by rioters, and David Dorn was just protecting, I think his friend's like vintage, not a vintage shop, like a pawn shop or something. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, we're in total anarchic hell right now.
Did you ever think, like, are you going to be the person that just wants to hide in a bunker, or are you going to go out there? And...
It depends on the day. No, since having the family, I'm going to do my best to just defend and hold down the fort. That's what I do. I'm not going to go out.
Not going to go out and do bad things.
Stuff unless at that point someone has done something that that might deserve it.
I wish Tim was building a bunker.
Well, you got to build your own. You got to just it's DI bring your own bunker, BYOB. That works out. It's BYOB. Bring your own bunker. So we've had a lot of crazy stuff happen in this house. It's been pretty good, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's real wood.
559 came and went today, and not really any problems.
And remember early on, and you said this in the Slack earlier yesterday or something, someone said that you were being like haunted by a little boy.
Yeah, we had a caller call in saying that, there was definitely spirits lurking, and there was maybe a little boy or a young child taunting me.
And I was pretty sure he might have been like the ghost gnawing at the cables. Early issues. It wasn't like human error or anything.
I was like, this makes sense, because it's like stupid nonsense.
Right.
So it makes sense it's a child.
What happened just yesterday?
Yeah, one of our coworkers unearthed some graves on the property.
We're laughing about it, but they're old graves, okay? So it's like it's not like it just happened the other day. They're old graves. And
they're
shout
really old.
Shout out to Brian for that. But one of them was a little boy, I believe.
I couldn't really tell.
It looks like one of them was a young child.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's the one bothering Alex.
Yeah. So it's real. It's for real.
But we've been cool ever since,
Yeah, we've been good.
It's been a few episodes. We haven't really seen much. The demon door has been shut, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Tim hired someone to just weld it shut. So it's totally, you can't, if someone opens it, we're totally screwed.
Yeah.
But man, that was fun.
Yeah, that was, man.
Crazy.
I don't really watch the Marvel movies, even though my kids are really into Spider-Man.
I haven't seen many of them. I've seen one or two. I didn't know that they mentioned Paperclip in the one or a few of my guests. But I think it's there's a lot of clues, I do believe, hidden in a lot of those movies that do come true. And it's weird. I don't think he even mentioned, because it's such a little aside, but in The Matrix, for those who don't know, I feel like everyone knows this now, Neo's ID says, I think it expires on 9/11, 2001.
Really? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, and by the way, the aliens will be pugs. That's all I'm going to They're going to come in pug form.
You would say that. You'll accept them then? If you're pugs.
Yeah, they're pugs. And it makes sense,
Yeah, they look like aliens.
Yeah, well, and Will Smith.
Men in Black.
Men in Black, yeah.
Yep. Every time I see a pug, I'm like, yep.
I have a pug, so I know.
You live with aliens.
I do. I live with an alien.
Oh, jeez. What are you going to do? Well, that was fun.
Cute. Yeah, it was fun. Good times.
Where can they find you?
You can try and find me on X.
Every week I try to just badger you onto the internet
every week I'm like, you know what? I'm going to post something right before we go live, and I just don't. I am Alex Ayala on X.
I'm Shane Cashman on X and all those other deranged places. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week.